Some games have a great story, others great gameplay, and most of the time it seems like those things exclude each other. Very rarely we play games where both the narrative and the gameplay are of equal and high quality. Soulstice is one of those rare exceptions. Not story or gameplay, but story and gameplay. It also comes to a surprise that a DMC-like game, or spectacle fighter, has a good story. I picked this game up for the gameplay, but finished it for the story.
I mean to ask a question about you, if I may. Do you believe in the Keepers?
I didn't care much about it as a girl. There was work to do in the fields. I care even less now.
And what about you, Lute?
There was a preacher of the triarchy in our village. Mother used to go and listen to his sermons. Then she helped me say my prayers before going to sleep. She taught me. I think it's part of who I was. Who I still am.
You shall fight for it then.
This video will be deeper than most. I will occasionally go on the long haul to explain certain parts, but I often feel that this is needed. To make this game not just an analysis but a watchable one, I deterred from making long sections. Instead I broke off parts. I will switch between story and gameplay, so not a single one overwhelms the other. The story follows two sisters who arrive on a shipyard in Ilden, a fantasy city. First meet Priya, a young, sweet girl
You want more? I've got more.
with a big heart
Do you have nothing to offer but platitudes?
and a beautiful smile. Her younger ghost sister Lute is sticking to her, literally. Her soul has been connected to Priya's body, which makes Priya a Chimera. Strong supernatural fighters who deal with otherworldly threats. This is explained by the opening.
In the beginning, the world was subjugated by chaos. Then, the Keepers came to be. Torchbearer, Shaper, and Judge. The three fought the spawn of chaos, and ultimately, they prevailed. Chaos could be banished, but it could not be destroyed. So the Keepers weaved a veil with their own essence and stood guard. The world was now safe, but it was also empty and meaningless. Thus, the Keepers reached beyond the veil. They seized the power of chaos itself. They gave it shape and purpose. They created life, and man was their most perfect creation. But all life would eventually hear the call from beyond the veil. Thus it happened that, alongside life, death also came to the world. The great cycle was set in motion. Yet chaos hungered for more, and sought to undo the Keeper's creation. The spawn of chaos struck, wounding the Keepers and tearing the veil. Endless droves of horrors trespassed into the world. And so came the Soulstice of Souls. Hurt and weak, the Keepers charged man with defending the world. They inspired man to fight fire with fire, ferocity with ferocity. Driven by the infinite wisdom of the Keepers, man turned the very power of chaos against it. Through sacrifice and resolve, a breed of sacred warriors was created. Three were wounds in the essence of the Keepers. Three the mighty battles fought and won by the champions of man. Three the sacred cities that were built in those hallowed places. Eventually, the Soulstice of Souls was put to an end. The 3 cities still stand to this day for the glory of the Keepers, while the memory of the sacred warriors has been lost to time. But while the mortal body must perish, that which is immortal is bound to be reborn.
This world is under the constant threat from powers beyond, and the Order Prior is part of deals with those. Chimeras don't act alone, but they get support by observers, in our case Layton.
While all life must perish, that which is immortal is bound to be reborn. But the Shaper had no hand in your creation. Did he, sweet sisters?
You're our observer?
I am Layton. I am here to assist you.
How exactly? An observer's talents won't be of much help in this fight.
Oh, I fight for the Order of the Ashen Blade in my own way.
In addition to that, 2 other Chimeras came before us, but they did not wait. Our goal is unsurprisingly getting to the giant beam of light, which is at the center of Ilden. We fight our way through hordes of monsters until we get into an elevator.
I feel something. Something's coming.
What is that? Oh no, I won't. Not again.
Sister, stay with me.
Damn.
Sister, talk to me. Are you alright?
Yes, despite my weakness.
That power was immense. It's not your fault.
Then whose fault is it? You saw. I almost. If I gave in to the corruption inside me, you'd be lost. I won't allow it.
This sudden burst not only pressures Prior, as her nature as Chimera makes her unstable, but also affects the other 2 Chimeras. What is important to note here, Lute is in charge of sensory and defense. She senses otherworldly energies and informs Prior. This is normal for Chimeras. What isn't normal is her and Prior's ability to link with past events. They and we as players can perceive what has transpired on certain locations. In this case, we understand that something was transported from the Order to the clergy of Ilden, under high security.
Halt! In the name of the Triarchy and the shining city of Ilden! The Ashen Blade? Huh. What is your business here?
We carry a gift.
During our travels, we will often meet Layton. Not only does he provide additional narrative, but also an opportunity to level up or obtain items, which are all consumable. The items are basic, restore health, revive, and so on. The level system will be part of the combat section, which is now a good time for. Prior will obtain different weapons during her journey. For this section I will showcase 3. The normal standard blade, which is good against unarmored enemies, the bow, which is the bane of flyers, and the Ashen Enforcer, strong against armor but in theory weak against nimble enemies.
One down.
Each weapon has combos that you can unlock via level up. The bow is just attacking from afar, nothing surprising. The Ashen Enforcer has a strong, slow attack that can uplift enemies. While they are in the air, they are unable to damage you, serving as both offense and defense. This works even better against nimble enemies, which is the reason why I only use those 3 weapons during my playthrough.
It's hard, but we learn quickly.
You can use a finisher move if you input a special combo. You also need Unity. Unity is gained by different actions, like blocking or damaging enemies, and lost whenever you take damage or miss a block. The higher Unity is, the more frequent loot will attack. Loot, as said before, is in charge of defense. Whenever there is an incoming attack, you see an input on the screen, usually LB on the Xbox controller. Depending on your timing and level, you will either block the enemy or freeze him. Freezing is slightly worse, because the attack will still occur. And you still have to dodge, which is the only defensive option on Briar's end. Enemies can be categorized in 3 ways. First, corrupted enemies. They don't have a specific requirement to attack. Most of them are grunts.
These broke. They were just people once before they became corrupted.
Call this the judge's mercy then.
The broken are the first enemies you will encounter. They swarm, do minimal damage and are less aggressive. The pikemen are ranged enemies, which you can only block and never freeze. They won't be staggered through the block like other enemies, but are in my experience easier to deal with. The last one for now in the corrupted section are the guards, armored enemies with a large chunk of health, and very slow attacks. When an enemy is armored, you don't stagger them and cannot give him an unfriendly boost. When the armor breaks, he's easy prey. For the next 2 enemy types, we need to go into the Chimera field theory. Loot can deploy 2 fields, a red one and a blue one. The blue one is for wraiths, ethereal creatures that cannot be damaged outside of a field, which is one of the reasons Chimera exists. Because soldiers sure could deal with corrupted, but they would have been easy prey to these ethereal hunters. Among them Grievers, melee attackers that can charge to Briar and like all wraiths can fly. The Reviler are ranged attackers. Fields aren't as large, and it can be hard to get these creatures into bow range. For me it was often easier to jump and attack them in the air. The opposite of wraiths are possessed. In a way they are extensions of wraiths, as in the story they are made when wraiths enter the body of a corrupted. The result are red crystallized bodies that rebuff your weapons. Some of them, like the Stinger, release the controlling wraith, and will revive if you don't kill that wraith before that happens. The most basic type, the Slasher, does not do this, but are among my least liked enemies. They have a charge attack that makes it hard to follow them, and often they do it in succession. The aforementioned Stinger has ranged attacks and melee attacks, but even though the game rates them higher than the Slasher, I find those easier to deal with. Loot can only deploy one field at a time, and only for a limited amount of time. If you exceed your limit, loot will temporarily be banished, and you can neither defend nor deploy a field for some seconds. Attacking enemies inside a field will reduce loot's entropy, which is the opposite of health, as it increases it till it breaks. Managing your field and defense is key to most fights, and I don't think it was an accident that loot, who is often seen on your shoulder, is only controlled with the shoulder pads on your controller. But this can be me just reading too much into it. These enemies will be introduced over time, and not only does it feel natural, it also is integrated into the story, because as we progress further into the tear, the enemies will get stronger the nearer we are. Tears in this world happen often, but not to this extent.
A tear opened, clearly. Its cause is unknown, but it's the largest yet seen, and...
Before we joined the Order, we knew nothing about all this.
I bet that even the preacher at the village didn't have a clue.
He had been taught and told what he needed to attend his flock. What good would it have been to him to know what we're up against? The truth can be complicated, scary, especially to the common folk.
So it is up to us to guard the veil, keeping chaos at bay.
So that everyone else does not have to worry about it.
And fattening up simpletons with fancy stories is part of the plan, is it?
Do not underestimate the power of a good story, Briar.
We suspect something is off with the whole mission, but as chimeras we have little room for maneuvering. Escaping is no option, and so the only way remains forward.
It is most troubling.
Conferring with Layton, we can see that this is not something extraordinary. The Order of the Ashen Blade keeps secrets from people outside and from within.
The tear is getting larger and larger. Does the Triarchy even know what is happening here?
Only at the highest echelons. It is in their best interest, after all. Word of Ildil's fall must not circulate freely.
That's it? They have no say in this destruction?
We are their protectors, and their wardens. They are happy to leave such a crisis in our hands.
Slothful and oblivious. They're in for some rude awakening.
The game already sets this up as a betrayal coming from within, and this will be my biggest criticism of the narrative at the time, but right now I want to point out that Briar and Loot know this. This does not come to a surprise, and the antagonists clearly don't like the Order. This transforms a typical story about a fanatic hero into a dark fantasy one. It's not so much of a personal betrayal and fall from grace. This Order is evil, just a necessary one. As an agent of the Order, Layton is not trusted by Briar, but reveals that reinforcements are on the way. Those reinforcements are needed because the two chimeras sent before you, as veterans, were the first to perish.
Why didn't we tell him about the convoy?
You said it yourself. If a greater scheme is in motion.
Then no one is beyond suspicion. His aura was difficult to read. It's hard to be sure of him.
We can only trust ourselves. Let's figure this out. Together.
Then we meet a celebrity among chimeras.
It is him.
Donovan. He must be one of the strongest chimeras alive.
The rumors are true.
I didn't think it was possible to fight like this.
Relying only on his prowess as a knight.
That's how he got to free. It's shameless.
Donovan is among the strongest chimeras and an oddball. He is distant but reveals that he knows about us. The conversation is better written, as I'm used to from other games. Instead of weirdly talking around the big reveal and artificially making the conversation unrealistic, they just say it openly, you know, like normal people would talk.
I know that you're not up to the challenge that awaits you.
We didn't exactly volunteer for this mission, you know.
I am well aware of it. You are not just lambs sent to the slaughter. You're no ordinary Chimera, and that makes things much more complicated.
Care to explain?
As I said, I know who you are. What you are, Briar.
A corrupted? You may as well say it plainly.
Sister, I don't think that Sir Donovan meant it.
Donovan is above all concerned about Briar and loot. Distant, sure, but he does not demand absolute sacrifice for the mission, but his worry is the well-being of the two sisters. He also expositions an important fact.
Is this about the tear in the sky?
Exactly. It drives a spawn of chaos to trespass into our world. But it also calls to us Chimeras. And the call must be especially strong for you two. You must be careful, or you won't meet death, but transcendence. Losing yourself to the chaos coursing through you.
So it's true. Not just some sort of legend to scare the troops.
For us Chimeras, it's a fate far worse than death itself.
Is that what happened to those who came before us?
Let us hope they simply passed away. Now, we should get back to the mission.
The tear has an effect on Chimeras. We saw this in a prior cutscene, but now we know the consequence. What seems odd is that Briar does not know this, neither does Loot. This is a key part about the nature of Chimeras, and it stands as reasonable that someone should have told them. They were trained by the Order after all, and as we will see later, Chimeras are heavily encouraged to avoid transcendence, even by the means of suicide. We give our farewell to Donovan and proceed. We fight through the ruins and meet the boss. We will come later to it when I want to criticize the flaws of the combat. For now it's the strongest enemy Briar has faced. She then makes a mistake and gets grabbed by the boss. And before she kicks the bucket, she partially transcends.
Briar, what is that? What is that? Sister!
For Loot it's a sight into Briar's essence and the key moments that have transpired. And that left a mark on Briar, so to speak. For the player it's a stylish flashback to give characters more background. Briar and Loot were two ordinary village girls. They were out picking wood with a way too small basket, and I really wonder how she can get multiple splinters from naturally dropped wood. How clumsy can you be?
I've got enough splinters in my fingers for today. You get to carry them home. What were you doing? Well, I did everything alone.
This! I chose only the most beautiful flowers. You like it?
Mama will like it.
Oh, I made it for Papa.
Our Papa?
You're mocking me!
No. No.
The scene is a bit too idyllic, but it does not last long.
Something's wrong. Mama! Papa!
No! Marie!
We can't stop now. Stay close to me, Loot.
The game withholds the next part, which is not enough background information for the setup, but that comes down to my taste. Speaking of my taste and withholding, I want to show you something. And no, it's not an uninvited duck pic. YouTube will probably not let me, and because of that this section about nudity in games exists. In my Steel Rising video, I was rightfully criticized for talking too much about other subjects than the game itself, in relation to the video length. This section will deal with nudity in games, and I believe that this section is justified, so I can explain why I feel strongly about this and to not leave important parts out. So first of all, why does YouTube have a problem with nudity? If I would not fear YouTube striking me, this section would not have existed after all. In 1620, the colonization from Europe to America were on its course. Many left Europe for different reasons, among them Puritans and Pilgrims, both groups from England, and many wanted religious reforms. At that time, for example, it was illegal to not attend English church. Puritans and Pilgrims, now separated from the church by a large distance, now developed their own identity. Even though they refer to themselves as Christian, there are differences between US Christians and European Christians in belief and practice. Under the influence of those beliefs, in 1930, the Hays Code was established, when movies, or how they were then called moving pictures, became mass available. The goal of this code was, and I quote, that no movie was produced that would lower the moral standards of those who see it. This included nudity, and this practice has been established in the US since. This is commonly justified and extended to video games, under the pretext of protecting the youth and general decency, and so the US and all companies in it, which includes YouTube, ban every penis, nipple and vulva they can, and all these efforts were awarded in rank 10, among the highest sexual crime rates among countries. That backfired. It's quite silly because nudity is a natural part of life, so sex, and without both no viewer of this video would have been born. Not only that, it's also part of cultures and art. Nudity is a way to express oneself, it can convey feelings, and it can be interpreted. No one would question the artistic value of David by Michelangelo, Aphrodite of Cnidos by Praxiteles, the rape of the daughters of Leucippus by Rubens, or even Christian art like Adam and Eve by Dürer. But I cannot leave out the ugly side of nudity in media, where nudity is not art but a shameless display to sell products. Where women and sometimes men are objects tied to marketing because sex sells is still true and used widely. I cannot say where the line is between those two, but I can say with near 100% certainty that the nudity depicted in Soulstice is art. And that's why I feel so strongly about showing the following scene. I will also explain it, but I show it without comment so I'm prepared if I have to cut it.
No. Briar so tethered and tortured. We went too far.
I feel it. So much. All dead. I killed them.
No, sister! No! Don't give in to your hate! I'm your sister! Remember me! Let the rest go!
Who are you?
Don't give in!
You're dead.
No, I'm right here with you. I'm with you.
It hurts. Kill all.
Please, sister. You're hurting me. We have to fight together. Remember.
Loot.
Briar, nothing will separate us. Nothing.
What we see is how Briar is naked and chained on both hands and has another chain tied to her collar. She has a purple stone in her chest and is in pain. She bows herself over similar to a fetal posture, which is a position people with trauma or fear often take. This is a strong contrast between her usual self. Briar is often very bashful, harsh and distant, fully clad in armor both literally and metaphorical. She shoves off others and sometimes even her sister to protect both Lute and herself. She does not trust anyone besides Lute, and here we see her laying everything bare. She is scared, and Lute, despite being the younger sister, is far stronger than her. She protects Priya, reassures her, and this difference between the Priya we control and the Priya on the inside has a lot of symbolic value. We don't need to get told how Priya is feeling, we can see it. And that's why the scene is so important and the nudity art. It expresses the characters and holds interpretable value. The nudity is also never used to sell the game. Priya is not depicted as a sexy character. There is no sex sales on the Steam page. Priya and Lute awake, again in control and not transcendent. Priya is slightly exhausted but resumes her journey, and when we meet Layton, he is surprised. We got insight into Priya's character, and I think it stands as fair if we discuss Layton. Layton, when we first met him, was very unhappy with us.
This is your first time.
Indeed. I must have committed some horrible sin to deserve it. Oh, don't be so touchy. You'd better get used to my witty remarks anyway. Just as I'll have to accept that I'm stuck here with you.
To everyone their penance.
He's sarcastic.
So we have the grumpy, the witty, and the wise. A well-assorted team indeed. I'm sure we'll get along just fine.
And has an accent, which is a genius way to make the game world appear larger, beyond the boundaries of what we can see and play.
The way you speak, it sounds weird. Where are you from exactly?
It is not weird. I take pride in my accent from the fair city of Rhyme.
Layton is surprised that Donovan is here. As an observer, he should have been informed and downplays his lack of information, which leaves Priya and Lute to speculate.
He was bluffing. I don't believe he even knew Donovan was here.
I am more troubled that he wants us to spy on him.
So that's what he meant. I like him less and less.
The Order has too many secrets. He'll get no more from us.
This is another reason why I like the narrative of this game. Sure, most of the time you kill monsters and sometimes talk to people, but the developer understood how to do most with the spotlight.
What if this is all part of the Keeper's grand design?
There are multiple factions in this game. Every person has different motivations, thoughts, and everyone feels like the protagonist of their own story. There are multiple mysteries in the game that get resolved, or you get answers to a point that feels satisfying, without having the author spell everything out for you. The Order, Layton, Priya, and Lute's past. The thing we follow, what is the Tear, and many more. Each mystery gets a spot, but it never dilutes the other parts of the game. Right now we find another flashback spot, where apparently the carriage from before exploded.
An explosion. It was massive.
I can see that. So our trail ends here?
It does not. I recognize an aura. The one I felt on the bridge. It caused the blast as it broke free. I couldn't tell before because of the lead carriage. Now I'm sure.
This is what the other Chimeras fought.
Fought. And lost.
What is this thing, Lute?
A wraith could not have been caged in the first place. It must be possessed. Even stronger than the one we faced earlier.
But why did they bring it here? Did they even know?
They did as they were told. They were slaughtered. Sister, over there!
Such a vulgar display of power. Did you even dispose of them?
We were just having some fun. Anyway, either they got blasted or they lie dead beneath the rubble.
So we got attacked by something insanely powerful. For now we are in the slums, it's fittingly tight and narrow to fight in. I want to take this opportunity to say that this game looks really good. The streets, the view on the tear, the water and the characters. For a AA title, it's gorgeous. The slums are muddy and appropriately ugly. Later we will see an ice area, the tear itself, the inside of buildings and sewers, my least favorite location. The locations could have been made that way because the developer had not to be concerned with player freedom. Each area has invisible walls and it's impossible to drown or to fall to your death. I can see this as the unwillingness of the protagonists to jump into their deaths. For example, invisible walls on a railing or in front of a burning building. This kind of level design is usual for this type of game and it's not bad. I don't think nor do I demand that every game should be open world, but I also think if you use invisible walls, you should at least hide it a bit better. In the slums we will often see locations that look traversable and I wish they made them on fire or something else. I say this because the game wants you to explore within its limitations. It has secrets like upgrades that increase your life or your ghost powers. There are also challenges that reward you the same but have little quirks to the combat. Besides those little secrets, the overall progression design is very simple. Enemy encounter, walking, sometimes platforming, then enemy encounter again. We meet Layton in the sewers. He got hit by the attack. Not full front of course, he's still living after all, but enough to damage his mask. Also, Corvo, his crow, is missing.
My good friend Corvo here brought the good news.
Your crow. How did it get here?
On his dark wings, I assume. But it's an educated guess.
You know what I mean. It should have succumbed to the corruption. Or to its monstrosities.
You shouldn't be so surprised. Crows are blessed by the torchbearer after all.
Oh, I remember the stories. About them leading the torchbearer to the souls of the departed.
Unscathed and undisturbed. Corvo is even safer than me here.
And that's not the end of the bad news. There's no sign of Corvo anywhere. He must have perished in the blast. Whatever happened to him, we're cut off from the Order now.
But reinforcements must be on their way by now, yes? And Donovan's here.
Oh yes. You had best find him.
I'm sorry about Corvo. I hope he is well.
It was just a tool. A useful one at that. But no pet or companion to me, if you're wondering.
Later. You know that I can read your aura. Usually you're good at keeping it black. But not this time.
Ah, the proverbial observer's aloofness.
You've had your fun, haven't you? Now be gone.
We fight through the next level and the only way forward is on a boat. As prior notes, this is a bad idea because of the limited options to defend while on water. There's however no other way. They arrive safely down the river.
See your prayer was answered.
No, not even the keepers could keep us safe on open water here. That was too easy. I don't trust it.
Prior suspicions get soon answered.
Here they are. Will you please finish what you started, if you can?
Don't you doubt us. They were just lucky. So you better
Be
be.
what? You do as I say. You know why we're here.
Your obsession with the other one, yes. How will you make that?
Shut up, fools.
You dare insult us!
Sister, it must be them. And I still can't sense their aura.
Hey, you two! Did we interrupt something?
Just kill him.
We'll play with our new toys. See how strong they are.
You'll find out.
Then maybe you can join us. You want to, we know it.
Never! They're useless. Destroy them quickly, then find me.
Quickly? No. We need to see what this new body can do. Every kind of pain it can inflict. Don't die too soon, but do scream.
I feel their auras now. They're too strong.
We need to get away from here.
This is one of the worst levels. While it looks impressive, it's literally just running in one direction and evading takes little to no effort. My guess is that the gameplay is not the point, but the narrative behind it, because up till now we felt like all powerful. Every enemy got beaten by Priya in the end, and yes, sometimes she was in trouble, but she always felt firmly like the hunter. But for this section we become the hunted. When we finally confront the enemy, it is not on our own terms, but because we have no other options. Even the boss fight is more running from attacks, and when we finally get to be on the offense, this happens.
We can't do this. It's too much.
No!
Please. They're too strong.
What? What? Where did you come from? Why are you here? What are you doing? Come on, guys! You dare!
I dare.
We find ourselves in Priya's mind again, and we can see what happened in Priya's past. Her village got attacked by wraiths. As soon as a wraith touches a human, that person will become corrupted. Priya puts Lute into a cellar and promises to find their parents. Their father has turned and kills their mother.
She never told me. I see why now. She meant to protect me from what she saw. Mama. Papa. No one deserves such a fate. Poor Priya. She carried it alone all this time.
Priya retrieves Lute, but gets surprised by a wraith, and the wraith attacks them and hits Priya, who then starts to turn. What happens next is omitted for now from the player. Given that Lute is a ghost, we know she will die, and given the circumstances, it's clear it will be from Priya's hands. Lute then speaks to Giga Priya.
No matter what you do, or what happens to me, hear me. Don't give in. You're not a monster. You can resist. Priya! No! You must resist it!
This shows again that Lute is Priya's anchor to some extent, her emotional bond. Lute keeps Priya from going berserk, but also from going insane. While Priya kills enemies in Rapture mode, let's talk about the combat again, so you can understand what I just said. When Priya and Lute fought the Arrowhead, they turned briefly, which gave them the ability to enter Rapture mode. In game this can be triggered when Lute and Priya's unity is at max, and you have to press both shoulder pads, which often enough triggered one of the fields instead, presumably a bug, or maybe I'm just bad at pressing two buttons at once. Rupture mode is very powerful. You often lift enemies up in the air, you are immune to stagger, and you can swiftly strike to enemies in a split second. You can also no longer defend with loot, but that was never needed, as offense became your defense. While in Rupture mode you also don't need fields anymore, and you can damage both wraiths and possesseds alike. Let's introduce some new enemies to try this on. First, the Champion, a giant corrupted that stands as a powerhouse. He was introduced as a boss, but later came often as a normal enemy. Because of his size you can only freeze his attacks, which makes it difficult to combat him in larger groups. And his swirl attack is hard to deal with depending where you fight it. Not that you have an option in that regard. The Blighted is a miserable creature, which reminds me strongly of Dead Island. It's bloated and explodes after it charges itself. Easy to kill before it charges, but when it's fully bloated, it's very hard to evade, especially in the sewers. The Mongrel is a fast hound corrupted. He has an attack that you can never really block or freeze, and I find it difficult to combat him, except when you make it fly.
Sister, look! Up ahead! It's a preacher! One of the most powerful wraiths ever classified by the Order.
The Wraith got some bosses, which I will exclude from the list, but as a reoccurring enemy, the Preacher takes the stand. He's a giant ephemeral that takes some hits and shoots multiple projectiles to you. Alone not a big deal, but with other critters very dangerous. The Abomination is probably the hardest enemy for me. Also introduced as a boss fight, it hits hard, has very large swings, but that is not the worst. When you damage it enough, it will release some of the wraiths that possesses it. And if you don't defeat them, he gets healed. It's hard to fight the wraiths, while the Abomination is still alive. Because first, it has an extremely large area of effect, and secondly, the wraith usually float over him. The Mauler is a possessed that does not take the front. He has a shockwave and seems pretty satisfied with staying behind the lines. It makes you jump every now and then. It hits hard but is more like a little brother to the Abomination. To battle these enemies we get a new set of weapons. First, the Hand of Retribution, which presumably can block attacks, even though I never figured out how. And it's designed against slower enemies. The opposite is true for the Whip, which is called Tearing Penance. It's for fast moving enemies and rarely staggers, but has more range than everything besides the bow. This also has the effect of being able to hit multiple enemies at once. But the inability to stagger makes it a poor choice if you rely on your offense to keep enemies from attacking you. This is the second last combat section for now. Layton saved us after we went berserk.
There she is. Briar, are you finally back to your senses?
Sister, I was so worried.
Finally. I was about to think my efforts on your behalf wasted.
What? Where am I? Layton.
You're a damned fool. Do you know what could have happened?
We had no other choice. I did what I had to.
No. There was another choice you could have made. Between death and transcendence, a Chimera chooses death. Or it is chosen for them. I'm amazed the Shadeless let you live.
Donovan.
He came to our aid.
He was not the only one. You need too much help. Perhaps my confidence in you was misplaced. But I suppose I'll have to make do with what the Keepers have given me.
Where's Donovan?
Transcendence is the process of corruption taking over the Chimera and fusing their souls together. This sentence.
Between death and transcendence, a Chimera chooses death.
Is a saying. Not just a rhetorical and fairly theatrical way for Layton to continue the conversation. A saying indicates that there are more occurrences, and it is possible that this happens often to chimeras, or at least that transcendence is a threat that constantly swings over the necks of chimeras, like the sword of Damocles. Normally transcended are unstable and grow weaker until they die. I assume this is because they, or the power they have, is from another world, and it disperses within the one Soulstice plays in. But because the tear is essentially breaking down the veil between worlds, the transcended becomes more stable.
Layton, I do not mean to judge you, but all this death, this devastation. And yet you sound so distant and indifferent.
Composure is instrumental to my efficiency as an observer.
Such fine words to justify that you just don't care a hang.
Aren't you the tough one? Or are you just pretending that you have a thick skin? You both need that, and a clear head to survive here.
We have plenty of both. Don't you worry, observer.
We resume our journey, and when Layton's gone, Pryor talks about what just happened with loot. Many games often only view things from the player's perspective, because we as players know what happened. There is no need for a discussion. But Soulstice takes care to look at every character's viewpoint, and this discussion feels natural. It also manages to be interesting. Despite having old informations of events, we get new information of characters. Pryor kept the past from loot to not hurt her. But given the conversation, she's more hurt than loot.
I wanted to protect you from that, even though I couldn't protect you from what happened next.
Sister, you did everything you could.
It was not enough.
Then I am just as responsible. That raid hurt you because of me. But all of it led us to here. We can make a difference now. Together. And that is all that matters.
I don't want to talk about the past. Let's find a way out of here.
We travel through the town. I think we left the slums because the buildings look more wealthy, but that is not clear. Then we see something. Pryor is dead set on saving the child. Her voice lines are more aggravated and desperate, while Lute suggests that there is no way that the child could survive here, and even if that would have happened, she would have felt that child's aura. But Pryor, despite knowing that this is true, still wants to save the girl. And here again is another genius twist on typical fantasy writing. You probably know these stories, where the protagonists, typically goody two-shoes, want to do the right thing, even though, logically, it does not make sense. I can't give examples because these situations typically come at a key point within the story, and that would be a major spoiler for other games or books. What's even worse in these situations is that the world agrees with the protagonists, and against all odds, it will always work out. Prior has the same premise. Both player and the protagonists know it is a trap, and the child is some kind of trick. Prior is not stupid, despite still wanting to make the goody two-shoes decision, but here the reason is different. She does not believe in the power of friendship or plot armor. She is also not made temporarily an idiot like many other stories make characters so the plot can work. She does so because of loot, or to be more precise, because of herself. She is tormented because she let loot die. This is not about the child, it's a desperate way for Prior to redeem her past mistakes. It's akin to a trauma and she is unable to not save the child. Her lines are perfect to transmit this.
I won't let her die for my weakness. Not this time.
She could never have survived here alone. It's impossible.
You don't know that. I have to help her. I must.
And this makes a typical eye-roller situation into a genius, incredible plot point. It still uses the trait of the characters, but as this world and the characters are twisted, so is the reason for her action. The player is able to feel Prior's remorse and guilt. And loot does not need to be mute for this to make sense. The girl of course lets us into a trap. This boss was the first one I could not beat, because I'm an idiot. When you level up your character you get upgrades, but you should not do the same mistakes as I did and take every upgrade, because some of them have downsides. As mentioned in the combat section, loot has a resource called entropy, and some upgrades and her field use that resource. So during that fight I could only keep up the field for very brief amounts of time, and was unable to beat the boss. I reversed my upgrades and beat it easily after that. But during the combat our corruption gets out of control and we get into another state of berserk. We now get to see more pieces of the story. We find out first that Donovan was the Chimera who was dispatched for the village.
Get back, child!
When Donovan tries to kill Prior because she's corrupted, Loot prevents him from doing so.
She can get better. I will help her.
That thing isn't your sister anymore.
Prior then, in her rage, attacks Loot and mortally wounds her. When Donovan then tries to finish off Prior, the Grandmaster of the Order, Jacques the Aldersberg— wait, wrong game. Dougal intervenes.
My place is where the three lead me, and their divine will led me here today, to these two sisters.
Dougal then takes in Prior and Loot to make chimeras out of them. This is highly unusual because Prior is a corrupted being. Normally only humans become chimeras. Loot then helps Prior regain her consciousness. She was fighting Donovan, who was trying to hold off Prior.
Briar. She needed to focus her rage. Her corrupted blood.
Oh, and you know an awful lot about my blood, don't you? I know now, Shadeless. I saw it in my nightmare. I remember. You were there.
So, it finally came to your mind, Briar.
You were ready to put me down, weren't you? I was just another corrupted. Why did you hesitate? It's your fault. What I did to Loot was on your head.
Prior is more upset that Donovan did not kill her, and gave her the opportunity to hurt Loot. Prior then wants to fight.
No.
We need to talk.
No. Our swords will do the talking.
Very well. I've never been good with words anyway. But know one thing. I won't make this easy for you.
This is one of the parts I don't like. This happens fairly often in media, where characters fight each other to clear up misunderstandings or simply to know each other better, but that's not why I don't like it. The part that aggravates me is that the characters in these sections often seem to know they are video game characters that cannot be killed. They are having a practice fight with real swords. In reality, there's a high chance that someone loses a limb or their lives. It's like people playing Russian roulette so they get to know each other better. Well, at least till there's a winner. This breaks the fourth wall but is accepted in movies, books and games that we often gloss over it. After this duel, Prior is calm again.
You're satisfied now?
No. But Lude's right. This is useless.
Things are not as easy as they look, Briar. If you ever find yourself in my position, you shall face some tough choices, and you'll make mistakes.
Do you have nothing to offer but platitudes?
Sister.
I came here to save you, even if you don't want me to.
We can't understand why they sent us on this mission. We're doing everything we can, but we are not ready.
You're getting stronger, that's clear. And you still have untapped potential. A great one. But the more you express it, the more you risk losing it all.
Prior is understandable angry and desperate, considering their situation as she puts it.
I don't know what to make of his words. I feel angry and stupid.
Sister, don't. You heard him. We can prove our worth in this fight.
In his eyes, or Raiden's, or in the eyes of Lord Dougal himself, they forged us loot, like a weapon. But if that weapon breaks, they will not hesitate to throw it away, like trash.
Then we will stay strong. Don't despair, sister.
Despite that, the only way remains forward, until they meet Leighton again.
Just as we ignore what really transpired here before our arrival.
In that regard, there's something you should know. We may have elected to share some information with you.
Loot, are you sure?
We hate to be kept in the dark, don't we? It's time. We have to trust someone.
What do you mean? Speak.
I have sent echoes of the past scattered throughout the city. They might hold the answer we seek. Let me explain.
You know that to hide such information equates to high treason. Were I to report this, you would be executed. Luckily enough, we have much more pressing matters at hand. I mean to confer with the Shadeless. You shall proceed on your own.
We travel towards the tear, and the area gets snowier with each step. I assume it's not actually snow but tiny crystals, but I'm unsure. Then we get another flashback spot. The spot reveals that whatever was in the carriage did wreak havoc here, and the two chimeras were following it. Amina and her shade Damien, as well as Jaden and his brother shade Jared. As far as we know, chimeras are made by two souls that have a special bond, like Lude and Prior. However, that bond is not necessarily a positive one. Amina was hunting the murderer Damien, and through their long-year play of cat and mouse, they formed a special connection, and they were transformed into a chimera. Amina loathes Damien, while Jaden and Jared are brothers who volunteered to be made into chimeras. They are both battle maniacs and fanatics. Both chimeras followed the creature, and so do we. At least we like to. But we are caught in a trap. Even though chimeras are the forefront fighters against the eternal threat of wraiths, the Clergy of Ilden had prepared. They have built contraptions to contain and kill otherworldly beings. Gameplay wise, this is nothing special, it's even boring. You just hit the 3 to 4 obelisks in a short amount of time and that's it. Neither platforming nor the main task is demanding, but the narrative behind those is more appealing. We first suspect that those contraptions are made against wraiths, but as we later will find out, there is a secret power struggle. among the religion called the Triarchy. The Triarchy, like in the opening, follows the Shaper, the Judge and the Torchbearer, and is split into different groups, in 3 different main cities. Among them was Ilden. The Order gained more power over the years, so the clergy wanted to protect themselves against chimeras in case of betrayal. And this whole religion is of course reflected in speech, like the Christian ethos shaped the language of the West. There are different sayings.
Judge's wisdom, dear sisters.
And may the Shaper grant you fortune in this life.
Judge, have mercy.
We find out that the creature inside the carriage is a transcendent.
What happened? Your embrace, it has loosened. Oh, but you have grown weaker. I can sense it. You struggled so hard. You thought you could save me the pain. But the pain was always with me, within me. Did you even know? Did you understand? I don't care about your guilt now. I want to feel this world. Taste it. Where to start? There, up there, I can feel something calling to me. I want to know what it is. Take me there.
The 2 chimeras decide to attack it later because it should lose power, because of the instability of transcended chimeras, which did not turn out well. Both chimeras transcended eventually, and next we have to put an end to Jaden and Jared.
Well, we meet again at last. We didn't think you would make it this far. You were lucky last time. No one is coming to your rescue now. That fool, that wretched bastard! We will never forgive him! He hurt us! He humiliated us! All because of you, Soul!
They remain battle maniacs up to the very end.
Brother, are we beaten? Yes, I am sorry. This was our final battle. It was glorious to fight at your side. I think I now understand why he protected them. If not for him, we would not have had this day. A warrior's death.
After their defeat, they leave behind the crystal formerly stuck in the chimera's chest. It's pulsating and Priya is drawn to it.
No, sister. Stay away from it. We are a chimera. We must not...
I must. It's calling out to me.
Lute finds herself inside Priya again. At this point it's like a motel. We see old scenes again, but this time something's off. The scenes have changed.
Don't worry about these peasants, sir. We were about to finish with them.
They are no longer your concern. Leave.
Leave them to us. We've got a score to settle with these monsters.
He can deal with the monster if he wants. We'll take care of the girl.
said leave. I won't repeat it.
No survivors, no witnesses. We don't make the rules, sir. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a job to do.
No! Freya! She's scared!
Damn it! Shoot! Shoot! Ah!
Fools. She's on the brink of death, but she still worries for her sister.
Spare her life! I beg you! She is my sister!
Damn, child. You mindless butchers.
That bitch attacked us, and her sister was defending her.
Why did he shield her? Whose side is he on?
We have wasted enough time already. We will finish what we started.
Look, my men didn't mean to hit you, but you're a Chimera. You'll heal, yes?
Look, let's go. Let him have them. There'll be other girls around here.
Is there no limit to your foul dishonor? You disgrace the Order and your duty.
We're just soldiers. Our very lives are on the line against these monsters. So we take what we can, while we can, including worthless village girls. Oh, wait. Is it because of your daughter? Yes, I've heard the rumors. You're pathetic, shadeless.
Enough. Let's... You killed him. Judge have mercy.
Run! Come on, before he gets us too.
Is this what really happened? Freya, she did not hurt me. It was not her fault. This changes everything.
And even the voice acting changes.
And their divine will led me here today, to these two sisters.
Enough!
Lord Dougal. I was about to report the situation to you.
Stop playing the judge, Knight. You are here to purge the spawn of chaos, not to preach to the troops. And certainly not to slay them out of a fit of rage or self-righteousness.
They are not worthy to fight for the Order.
They're tools and resources, and you're not meant to waste them.
Lord Dougal did something to Freya, and thanks to the crystal she was able to break free from her chains. Lord Dougal put these chains on Freya in a metaphorical sense. He did some kind of magic to mess with her mind and try to chain her down, with guilt for killing Lute. This reveal was at first for me a low point, because it was way too typical. A giant, secretive order that betrays the protagonists for its own schemes. Now I think it had to be done this way, or else the dark fantasy feeling Soulstice oozes from all its digital nostrils would be lost. Freya is understandably furious at Layton, who in her eyes is the representation of the Order. Lute is more calm and wants to ask questions first and foremost.
The monastery, at last. The only way to the Tears through these halls.
Freya, are you sure you're alright? You woke up on your own, but you've hardly uttered the word since. Are you angry about what we discovered?
Of course I'm angry, Lute. But we already knew this sent us to our deaths. To know that we were manipulated from the very beginning. It sets me free somehow. We owe nothing to these people. No obedience, no fealty, nothing. Only retribution. Now, where is that craven weasel? Layton! Show yourself, you coward!
Sister, please calm down. He was not even there.
We only discovered one part of the truth. I'll wager he knows the rest. How can you be so calm about this? It was your life they took. They did this to you. How can you be calm? How?
If they hadn't, I would have lost you. We are together. I won't be angry about that. But I do want the truth. So you're right. We should find later.
So let's interrupt this as some sort of cliffhanger and speak for the last time about the combat. Combat management does not only consist of enemy and player abilities. There are arena changes too. For the red side we have mines. If you have deployed your red field, those mines charge up, and when fully charged, they explode, so you have to cancel your shield sometimes. On the blue side there are thorns, that are the exact opposite. If you don't have your shield deployed, they explode almost instantly. The combat in this way constantly evolves, and with so many different factors, you can mix them up and make each encounter unique, with one exception: the incense burners. The incense burners restrict loot from deploying a field, respective to the color. So a red incense burner, signaled by the red lights on the screen, prevent you from using the red field, and the same for blue. But remember, 99% of the combat is in arenas that you cannot leave unless you defeat all enemies. So the incense burner So the incense burner is less a restriction for loot than it is for the developer. The game is linear, so if you come to an arena that is under the effect of a red incense burner, you cannot encounter possessed enemies, or else you would be unable to progress. So the developer had to remove one enemy type. Incense makes the combat easier, because now I only have to manage one field. You could also see the incense burner as a narrative contraption, because they were made against wraiths and chimeras alike, so in that sense, it stands as reasonable to restrict both. But on the other hand, it's practically useless against chimeras, because versus normal enemies it has no effect, and humans would be in that category. The last non-boss enemies are the Alpha, which is a more stun resistant and bigger mongrel. Then the Shrieker, a flyer ideal for the bow, and among the normal corrupted, the Captain. It buffs other corrupted and is very tanky. The Wraith's last unit is the Repentant. It's a bigger Wraith and looks like someone split the Preacher in the middle. I often find it hard to distinguish between those two because they are so similar in combat. The Possessed have the Fury, which is a possessed Shrieker and my most hated enemy. It's fast, and I hate running after enemies. The Eidolon and the Chorus are big behind the line possessed with ranged abilities, mostly dangerous in groups with others. And lastly, score. Whenever you finish a fight, you get a score in regards how well you did. Among them is time, damage took, and score, which seems to be affected by how many combos you did. I'm not a score hunter, but for many this is probably a selling point. Speaking of level, when you level up you can increase your proficiency and moves with Priya, but the more interesting option is on Loot's side. She can increase the range of her fields, reduce entropy or make it possible to block bigger enemies. Also there's an increase in numbers of subsequently blocked attacks. There is a two-sided plate however, like I said previously. This goes for upgrades that have an additional effect, for example a crystal that explodes whenever you successfully block an attack. This increases entropy, and so it decreases the time a field can be deployed. There is one problem with the combat, and I really mean one problem, because it only happened during the Arrowhead boss fight. Normally when an enemy is about to attack, you get the proper input on the screen, but for some reason this did not happen during that boss fight, and I can only guess it's a bug, hopefully. The combat is overall fun. It's rare that you get in unfair situations and the enemy even attacks less if you don't see them, so it's best not to have every enemy on screen. The only thing that could get some improvements are the level up options as well as having more defensive moves, but overall solid combat. We now meet Layton.
No more games, no more lies. Spill your guts or I swear I will.
Briar! What does this mean? Lute, tell your sister to calm down before she does something she regrets.
It will be easier if you just answer our questions. All we want is the truth. Please.
Did you know? Did you know that Dougal warped my memories? That he had me think I killed my own sister?
On rebirth, Layton. All this time we have lived a lie.
Secrets, lies, the very lifeblood that runs in the veins of the Order. Blood that stains everyone and everything that it touches.
But why did Dougal forge Briar's memories?
To keep you both on a leash. To manipulate you. That's how he treats his subjects.
You talk like you had no part in all this. You're just an accomplice.
Believe me, my sins are many, but I had no part in your rebirth. I was still climbing up the ranks of the Order at the time.
So what do you know?
Just that Dougal was intrigued at your discovery, your nature, your bond.
So we were just a whim to him? An impulsive fascination?
Who knows what he thought he could accomplish with you, or through you. But then you proved just too fickle, restless. You just weren't worth the effort, so you were discarded.
Failed experiment. Now I can see why we were given this mission.
As for Armina and Jaden, I assume they were just out of luck.
So you think that we were all sent here to die?
With everything that we have discovered so far, I find it hard to deny now. Dougal just needed someone disposable to reclaim Ilden.
But what did you do to earn your place here?
Me? Oh, Lord Dougal wanted to reward my service. It may sound baffling to you, but... The dare! Briar, Lute, we are not safe here. There's more to discuss, but this is not the place or time.
This scene is very weird. Usually this works out in a way that we need to talk later, so our conversation partner gets murdered, before they can pass over information to keep the mystery going. In this case, minutes later we do have a proper talk. I don't get this scene. Maybe they wanted to poke fun at these situations, but if that's the case it's gone over my head. But we get a big reveal.
Let us say that I have an agenda that goes beyond my duty as an observer. And a duty
That does not lie with the Order.
You're a traitor.
After all you've witnessed here, you talk of treason to me. I am, and I always have been, an agent of the Triarchy. The Order of the Ashen Blade was created as the armed wing of the Triarchy. But the Order has constantly called for more independence, more power. For centuries, both sides have fought in secret to gain the upper hand. I was recruited as a spy in Rhine. I was just a humble monk then. My task was to infiltrate the Order by becoming an observer.
You've lived a lie yourself for so many years.
Yes, watching, waiting. Then a few dreadful words began to echo through the halls of Doran. The Soulstice of Souls.
The spawn of chaos struck, tearing the veil.
The Keepers watched as horrors spilled into the world, and so came the Soulstice of Souls. I kept an ear out, but I heard nothing more than fearful whispers. Eventually, I decided to try my luck with the Shadeless. Donovan knew no more than I, which troubled him deeply. So he decided to confront Dougal himself. I haven't seen him since. And when word of a major crisis in Ilden reached the headquarters, Dougal trusted me with such an important mission. Apparently he had found out about my other line of work.
So we're truly in this together.
Indeed. And if Dougal really means to bring forth this Solstice of Souls, then we must stop him. At all costs. Together.
What about Donovan? You didn't know about his presence here, did you?
No. And I can't explain it. But with the Grand Master involved, I can't but fear for the Shadeless's life as well. Anyway, I showed my cards. It's your turn now. What do you say?
I don't care for your allegiance. You're a spy. I don't trust you.
Sister, we must join forces with Leighton. There's no other way.
I know. I do not deserve your trust. But I will help, if you let me.
Fine, observer. It looks like we're on the same side. For now.
And as Pryor and Lute later privately discuss, they are allies with Leighton now. We see another past aura, this time when Amina and Jaden fought against the Transcendent.
Why are you attacking us? You'll just die, like all the others. But wait, you're just like we were. Death shall not be the end for you. Yes, Father, we can help them. Help them see. Help them change. Oh, it is decided then. No. You had your way for far too long, Father. Now it's my turn.
Our antagonists, for some reason, find it very disturbing that a chimera is made with father and daughter. This could imply some sense of intimacy as a chimera, but considering that there are two sibling chimeras in the story, I don't know why they draw the line here. It's Donovan. This is not a big reveal, because there is no way that there would be two daughter-father pairs in a single game. And shortly before that we heard...
Oh, wait. Is it because of your daughter? Yes, I've heard the rumors.
Our characters don't catch on to this. And even though I first thought this was an obvious reveal and I should have seen it coming, I later retracted my opinion. Because I know it. Because of the player's limited perspective. In this world there are literally millions of daughters and fathers. And while I only saw one pair, Prior and Lute would have a brighter perspective.
Is that his shade? A girl. Why did he summon her?
I'm not sure he did it on purpose. This is bad. Very bad. Be on your guard, sister.
Chaos be damned, Lute. What is going on?
The shade's aura, it permeates Donovan's completely. She's taking him over. I can barely sense him.
The daughter clearly started to control him. We beat him, but suddenly Bird Person takes him away, and we chase her. It's one of the best sections in the game, the spectacle, the fight, the chase, the music, everything comes together here.
It just won't stop.
Shortly before the tear, we fight Amina.
You made it here. It seems that congratulations are in order. I thought you were just a fraud, you know? But you've surprised me. Maybe I was wrong about you. Is there still hope for you to embrace your true self?
You're insane! What are you rambling about? We are not here to parley with the likes of you.
You're a monster! Where is Donovan? Set him free!
Such insolence. Do you even realize how powerful we've become? Can't you see that she made me a goddess? We will be divine beings among mortals, perfect beyond human understanding. I even considered the possibility of saving your worthless lives. But no, you had the opportunity to be purified, and you squandered it. You know, one thing I cannot tolerate is a lack of gratitude. It is decided then. You will die an impure being. Your suffering may actually take you close to your limit, and you may even taste perfection before you are slain, only to know that you will never be worthy.
She's a tough fight, especially because she does something I hate, forces me into platforming.
You are no match for a trans.
After the fight, we have another crystal, but this time we choose to take it, which makes an important difference.
But it will be up to us to help Donovan, to stop the Soulstice of Souls. Without this crystal, we are simply not strong enough to do it. Moreover, if not for the one we got from Jared and Jaden, we would have never found out the truth about our rebirth.
There's still much we do not know.
Maybe this will let us find out. And if it hurts, I'll be by your side.
Most of what we see, we already know. Donovan had a daughter and she was ill and in pain. There's something I never did think about, because this is very rare in religions. Just because you died does not mean the pain ends. Normally in Christian and most other religions, after the body rests in peace, you are free from the shackles and pain, but here Donovan's daughter still is tormented. I cannot imagine how gruesome endless pain can be. We also see how chimeras are made.
O mighty keepers of the cosmos, heed the call of your humble servant. Guide his hand in the realization of your grand design. So long ago, you shielded us from the spawn of chaos. In our darkest hour, you sent your chimeras among us, so that they would protect us and deliver us from the evil that would consume our world. But the vigil of the chimeras never ends. Torchbearer, you who light the way and teach us virtue, walk alongside the supplicant I bring before you, and with her soul, ignite the sacred crystal I hold in my hands. Judge, you who condemn the flaws of our mortality. With each step I make, cleanse the sins of these two souls, and prepare them for their new existence in your service. Shaper, you who bring forth the end to usher in a new beginning. Bind these souls, shape them into an instrument of your divine will, and have them rise again as a chimera of the Ashen Blade. While the mortal body must perish, that which is immortal is bound to be reborn.
And Briar is finally free.
These nightmares, they have brought back so many memories. I tried to bury them beneath my anger, my rage, but it was not enough. I am but a foolish experiment. A failed one at that. A trivial mistake to forget and forsake. If only it had just been about me. But no. I had to drag Lute down into this darkness. I do not deserve to have her by my side. If I cease to exist, she would finally be free. This is for the best.
Sister!
Lute, you are here with me. Even now.
Of course I am. I always will be. Briar, we cannot undo what was done to us. It's a scar that won't heal. Because we are that scar. But we have to get back now. We have to wake up.
You are far stronger than me. To live again, that pain, that horror. I thought I could withstand it. I was wrong. Our deaths, our rebirth. In the end, it's all been for nothing. And now that our souls are lost, only a monster remains out there. Just like the ones we meant to stop. But this, we cannot defeat.
Don't be afraid of who we are.
How can you even say that? You have always feared the horror within us.
But then you showed me. You told me. It does not matter what they made us. The only thing that matters is what we do with it. And if it takes a monster to put an end to this nightmare, so be it.
Just think of Leighton's words. Between death and transcendence, a chimera chooses death. It's for the best, Lute. We have to let go.
I don't care about what he said. He knows nothing of us. He does not know that we always have a choice. We can choose to fight.
You really are the strongest among us. It's you who teaches me. Every day. You're right. We do have a choice as long as we are together. We're not going down. They want yet another monster. They shall have one.
We very briefly transcend again. This time even changing our body. Then we have a talk with Layton before going into the tear.
What you accomplished is unprecedented in the history of the Ashen Blade.
However, we're not the only ones to have overcome transcendence. Donovan did it as well. And this means that he can be saved too.
You're right, Lute. Enough pats on the back. We must reach him as soon as possible.
And seal the dare. All your efforts will be for naught if we don't deal with what's overhead.
I still can't understand how it could open in the first place. Or why here, of all places?
Priya removing her armor is a metaphor for not needing defense anymore. She is the hunter, not the hunted. Finally free and true to herself. It's still stupid, because you should keep your armor when you are about to face the final boss.
Are you ready, Lute?
Ready, and no longer afraid.
The tear is absolutely awesome. It looks like a chaos rift, and I'm suspecting Slanesh attacking me any minute. The visuals are exceptional. This time in each arena is a special item that makes you go into rapture, and this makes fighting so awesome. You feel really powerful, as it should be, because that was one of the reasons for absorbing the crystal. And at the end we meet Donovan and his daughter.
While the mortal body must perish, that which is immortal is bound to be reborn. Dougal must be stopped. He wants to create a new world, but he will only destroy the one we have.
Sir Donovan!
We're here to help. If you let us.
Please hold on. There must be a way.
It's too late now. My Hannah and I, we are doomed. I did my best to lead you here. It was all I could do, in spite of all my strength and pride. I have always been but a broken tool in the hands of the Grand Master of the Ashen Blade. He even used me to perpetrate a lie about your rebirth. I am sorry.
Donovan, it does not matter now. You must.
It's Crystal. It's falling apart.
I am sorry. I can't hold any longer. But you are ready. We are beyond redemption. I hope you can still give us oblivion. Then your true mission will begin.
The boss fight has many different phases and some very strong and disturbing visuals.
You're crazy. You have brought forth your own destruction.
You're just like Father. You always think you know better. But I am no fool. Unlike him, I am aware of the consequences of my own actions. My new body won't be able to contain this power for long. but long enough to put an end to everything, starting with you!
It's finally happening.
If the crystal explodes, the tear will extend far beyond the harbor. And Dougal will have what he wants.
We have already made our decision. We must absorb the crystal. We'll be dead anyway if we don't.
Damn! You can't stop me! My death will be my victory! Ah!
Loot! We can't break her hold! We must chat to the crystal. Now!
Keepers watch over us.
You blasted fool! Yours is just an act. It changes nothing. We're all going to die here and now. One day, you'll understand. This world cannot be saved. We cannot be saved. The end is our only way out. You are just setting us free. While you remain trapped in your cage. Father, wait for me.
So Briar and Loot are now transformed into a Transcended. Let's talk about what happened. As already said, there is a power struggle between the Order of the Ashen Plate and the rest of the religion called the Triarchy. Layton entered the Order as a spy and convinced Donovan, who then questioned Dougal the Grand Master. Dougal is guarded by the Reaper, a very strong Chimera who's in charge of disposing traitors to the Order. In the fight, Donovan's crystal gets damaged and thus his control over the otherworldly powers diminish. Dougal then orders that Donovan will be transported to Ilden, because he knows that a Transcended would be drawn to the altar, where an ancient artifact is buried. Like we heard in the intro, this world was controlled by chaos, and when the gods, the Triarchy, tamed it, they stabilized it with 3 artifacts buried in each of the cities.
3 the mighty battles fought and won by the champions of man. 3 the sacred cities that were built in those hallowed places.
The canticle of the Keepers. Again.
Ilden is one of the sacred cities, right?
It is. Which means that the Soulstice of Souls was especially strong here.
Dougal wants to end the world because he's a lunatic. Compare him to suicide bombers. Fanatics rarely are subjected to reason and logic, but in this case the fanatic is also in a position of power. Dougal thus planned to bring down each of the cities, with similar methods. Briar and Loot were an unknown factor because they did not expect that someone could control their corruption to this extent. Even to transform while keeping sane and stable.
Judge, forgive me. What happened? My head hurts and spins in equal measure. Briar! Lute! Is it you? It happened again.
Yes. But do not worry for us, Nathan. Not for now, at least. How do you feel? Do you remember?
The last thing I recall was Donovan making his way to the relic. Poor soul. I can't but feel pity for him, and even for his daughter. Anyway, then came a blast, and I blacked out. I suppose that's when you...
Transcended? Yes. Eventually. Once Hannah gave in to the destruction within her, we had no other choice.
Between death and transcendence, a chimera chooses death. Those sounded like wise words. At the time, it looks like I was the fool. But the dare is no more. How did you seal it?
We didn't exactly seal it. We drained the relic of its power.
So that now, that power lies within you.
This fool. Our corrupted blood must be helping us contain it. We do not know exactly how, or for how long, or what would happen should we turn back to our previous selves.
The situation is dire, and the danger is great. Yet again, what you did, I can't but thank the Keepers for. No, I have to thank you for it.
So what do you propose? What course of action should we take now?
Hide. Survive. Try to adapt to this new condition of yours. While you draw breath, there is still hope for this world, and for Dougal's plan to be thwarted. The two things are strictly related. As for me, I will send word to Rhyme. I will set up my stage once more. They shall be surprised to see that I still stand. Or simply disappointed.
Won't it be dangerous for you?
They would come for me anyway. I'd rather be their first target, instead of you. I can buy you some time. If things go my way, I may even be able to help you. But I can't make any promises.
At least promise that you'll be careful.
I will.
We'll do the same. Farewell,
May the Keepers watch over you, my friends.
So what's left? I think it's worthwhile and interesting to analyze not only the game itself, but also the inspiration behind it. It's common, like when people discuss God of War, to go into mythology. In this case, it's very obvious where the developer took inspirations from. Briar with her almost white hair, cat-like pupils, having transformed into a monster, the theme of becoming the monster to protect humans from a world full of monsters, acting almost every time alone in a fantasy world. Yes, of course it's Claymore. The similarities were so big that I literally first googled Claymore and Soulstice and found almost instantly a livestream where the developer listed Claymore as inspiration. Claymore is a manga that plays in a fictional universe where monsters called Yoma kill humans. To battle those Yoma, an organization transformed humans, but mainly women, with tissue samples from Yomas. They obtain cat eyes and insane powers. With those, they carry claymores, which the normal citizens then call them after. It's a dark fantasy novel, and has a lot of parallels to Soulstice. This now goes into Claymore spoilers. I don't feel compelled to give a spoiler warning anymore, because if people decide to watch a longer video about a game, it's a given that there are spoilers in it. I mean, what do you think I'm talking about all this time? But now we go into another media, so this is your warning. In Claymore, the organization also betrays its members and the humans. It stands that the world is just a tiny island and a giant war is happening on the main continent. They develop weapons on the island, namely the Claymores, so they created the Yoma, like the Order opened the Tear, and used them to get stronger. The main handler in Claymore also is a spy just like Layton is, and works for the other side of the conflict, and the protagonist also transforms into a monster in the course of the series. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. Because there are probably some people that are shouting at the screen that The Witcher also did this. The Witcher also has similarities, and when discussed, I often see people argue that Claymore stole from The Witcher, which is highly unlikely. The argumentation often goes like this. There are two fantasy series, one Claymore, the other Witcher. Claymore came out in 2001 and Witcher in 1990. There are striking similarities between each one, so the younger one stole from the older one. Problem with this argument is that it only considers very few factors and ignores others, among them accessibility. While the Witcher books nowadays are popular, in 1990 it was only a thing in Poland. It is highly unlikely that Norihiro Yagi heard from the series in Japan, and even if he did, he would have a hard time reading it. The first translation in English was in 2008. And the first Witcher book translated into Japanese was in 2010, with a very odd cover art. Uhu, Geralt senpai. This makes it more likely that both have a common reference for inspiration, which is Moorcook. Michael Moorcook is a science fiction and fantasy writer, who among others founded the subgenre of sword and sorcery. In this genre, the common themes are becoming the monster to fight the monster, in a dark and often gritty fantasy world. He even created a very similar character to Geralt, Claymore and Prior, called Elric of Melniboné. And the albinism of Witcher, Claymore and Soulstice and Elric goes even further back, to a character named Monsieur Senif from the Sexton Plague series in 1918, so the white hair goes all the way down. I should have phrased that differently. Sapkowski, who is the author of the Witcher books, lists Moorcook as an inspiration. He said this in an interview with Daniel Kotali. I hope Moorcook is not pronounced Moorcock, but I don't want to check, so I can childishly pretend that there is a chance it's pronounced that way to amuse myself. While we are at it, let's talk about the lawsuit. There's a strong rumor that Moorcook sued Sapkowski over plagiarism. This rumor was so widespread it actually muddied the water, and it's usually spread by people who think open forums like Reddit is a source. I found an article by The Telegraph, so not a niche paper, and it says that there was never a lawsuit. But Moorcook was angry and talked to his lawyers. And if you want to read it yourself, use Archive Today or the Wayback Machine to bypass the paywall. So there you have it. Soulstice fantasy part was inspired by Claymore and Berserk, who belong to the sword and sorcery genre, dating back to Moorcook, and the albinism is even more than 100 years old. The other inspiration is not listed by the developer. It's probably the Catholic Church. Replay Game Studios is an Italy-based developer, and 66.7% of all Italians are Catholic, according to Wikipedia. We can see the influence. The Trinity is a common view on Christian belief. The Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit are co-equal and co-eternal persons that all belong to the same essence of God. Let's look at the intro again.
In the beginning, the world was subjugated by chaos. Then, the Keepers came to be, Torchbearer, Shaper, and Judge.
First of all, the religion of the Triarchy is a picture-heavy religion, just like the Catholic one. Protestantism, for example, is more of a word religion, which means you find more pictures, frescoes and biblical art in Catholic churches, while churches of Protestantism are usually very modest. Now look at the picture and how it presents the three gods. One has a sword, one has an urn, and the other is praying. The urn usually stands for agriculture and depicts the art of giving. The praying one is in religious context usually the will, and the sword is a metaphor for acting. Those three aspects are similar to the Trinity in Catholic doctrine. This could mean that even though each of them exists as individual persons, the Judge, the Shaper and the Torchbearer, they are also part of a godly essence. So these are the two inspiration aspects of Soulstice. Sword and sorcery with all its background, and the Catholic Church in world building. For the last part, let's look at the after credits scene.
Corvo, what are you doing here? I thought I'd never see you again. The Torchbearer led you back to me at a most convenient time. I have a very important message for you to deliver. There you go now. To Rhyme.
How unfortunate. I took it for a corrupted creature, and my instinct got the best of me. After all, who could roam these ruins, if not one that carries their taint? You must have a good reason to be here, alive.
Cordelia? Cordelia the Reaper? I'm sorry, milady, but the chimeras that came before you, they're no more. I'm afraid you're too late.
Or maybe I was right on time. What lies did you write in that letter? Where are they?
Don't be so reckless, my sweet Reaper. Once the Torchbearer takes them, the dead can only tell us so much. I will have a friendly conversation with our devoted observer. While you give chase to Beriah and loot.
They won't stand a chance, Your Grace.
Approach them with that attitude, and you'll face the Judge in no time. It's not time yet. Follow them, learn what they're capable of. Then report back to me.
As Your Grace commands.
So, Leighton, I assume your letter was addressed to me. Speak then. What did you wish to tell the Grand Master of the Ashen Blade? You know that you were meant to die here, with all the others. Did you expect that I would fall for any of your pretentious tales?
Let us speak the truth for once, then. They stopped you, Dougal. Admit it. The outcasts did what no one believed possible, including me.
Those peasants did exceed my expectations, yes. But all they have accomplished is just a small setback. A detour from a path that cannot be abandoned.
But why? What did you hope to accomplish here?
You would not understand, or anyone else in your sanctimonious triarchy. But you do not need to. It suffices that you recite your beloved canticle. The 3 cities still stand to this day, for the glory of the Keepers.
Are those tears of Adoran and Rhyme? Dougal, you madman! What have you done?
The Soulstice of Souls is upon us.
First of all, rest in peace bird. We see 2 more tears ripping open, and it could stand that we need to close those 2. I don't really like it, if it goes that way, because that would mean just doing the same stuff over again, with no new narrative value. But maybe Reply will do something different with this. There could also be a more interesting development. When we were in the tear, we had this scene.
This man, the armor he wears is strange. Where did he come from?
I don't know, sister. It's like he's not even from this world. There is so much we don't know about what mysteries lurk beyond the veil.
This could mean that there are multiple worlds connected through the tears. And I assume it's probably also not good for them if this thing rips their world apart. So we could see maybe a dichotomy of storytelling in the next game. Maybe we close one tear on this side, while we also play as another character on the other side that closes the other tear. Maybe even having drastic differences between the playstyles of the 2. Or maybe even other gameplay, like a spectacle fighter and a strategy game. I would love to see that direction, more than just do the same thing 2 more times prior. Now some things I could not fit into any section well. I don't like the eyes of the characters. They seem to jump out of their sockets, and this kind of disturbs me. The camera is sometimes worse than any boss, and in some scenes it felt like it was looking from a satellite. Prior often shouts very confident sentences to the enemy during fights.
You want more? I've got more.
In conversations, both Prior and Lute agree that they are too weak and not ready, so I presume this is more to motivate herself and to reassure Lute than a sign of overconfidence. Soulstice was great. It had a lot of symbolic implications that made it worthwhile to analyze and maybe overanalyze it. They are clear inspirations, and it helped tremendously to see where the concepts of this game came from, knowingly or unknowingly by the developers. Yes, even if you don't know something, you might put it into your work. Like everything I write comes from my experiences, my upbringing and my life choices. I don't actively know them at all time when I write something, but it nonetheless flows into every sentence. It played great, it looked fantastic, and the story was surprisingly worthwhile. It's an overall grandiose game, and you can feel that the developer put a lot of soul into Soulstice. May the torchbearer guide your way. Farewell.